The mainstream movie industry has always considered YouTubers and less traditional content creators as not real filmmakers or not real video artists. And as such, anytime creators in this vein have aspirations to make something big and do something incredible, and they set out and try and do it, the industry's like, yeah, okay, kiddo, you go ahead and do that. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It's finally happened. Someone has gone out of their way, pursued a passion project in making something big for a theatrical release that has finally come out, and stuck it right up the industry's ass. I am, of course, speaking about Iron Lung, a film by Markiplier based on a game of the same name. By the time you're seeing this, it'll have been a little over a week since the movie has come out. I think this is a relatively appropriate time to be releasing this video, you know, now that a fair majority of people have seen the film. I feel as though I can speak about it without spoiling anyone. But if you haven't seen it yet, then do not watch this video beyond this timestamp I'm putting on screen. There be spoilers. But Iron Lung is a lot more than just a movie that was made by a YouTuber. It's a lot more than that. It is like a symbolic representation that you don't need to be some big mainstream studio or some big name actor or someone with an inflated budget or some renowned director to make something incredible that blows the minds of many. Not only is this, of course, exemplified and displayed by the numbers and the charts of Iron Lung's success, but also by the quality of the film itself and, of course, the other movies that are currently releasing, like, I don't know, what's out right now? Oh, that's right, Avatar 3! The goddamn third movie in the Avatar series is out, and here's an ironic thing. When I was at the theater going to see Iron Lung, there wasn't a single poster up for it, nowhere, anywhere around the theater, and I looked extensively, was there a poster up for Iron Lung? Plenty of Avatar merch, plenty of Avatar posters, all that stuff, but not a single one for Iron Lung. Movie studios, or more accurately, their shareholders, are always trying to outcompete other studios, or just, you know, make as much money as possible, outcompete their competitors, and generally just advertise the crap out of their films. They appeal to a certain demographic, you know, they have this little checklist of boxes that they tick. Oh, this film has this, and it has this, and it has this. That means it must make money. And sure, it does work, but it's a tired, old formula. Due to the nature of the amount of control shareholders have over studios, if a genuinely talented director is brought on to produce and make a film and, you know, decide on the casting and all this stuff and have creative direction over it, like someone who is genuinely invested in the IP of the film they were brought on to make, someone who's done the research and someone who's passionate about it, even in those scenarios, they will still have limited control over the film because the shareholders have the ultimate say. If they try to do something that is outside of the boxes that the shareholders try and tick, or tick a box that the shareholders don't like, it's like, nope, you're not allowed to do that. Iron Lung, on the other hand, doesn't have this restriction. And even aside from that restriction, it's also just something very different, something like very unique. Like video game movies tend to have like somewhat of a bad rep. I mean, they've gotten better in recent times. You know, the reputation of video games and movies have definitely gotten better in recent years, but I feel like there's still kind of a stigma or a taboo around them when it comes to, you know, the people up top when it comes to investing in things, because there's some like, video game movie, like, why would that make money? Well, newsflash, if it's based on the right game, it'll make a ton of money, as displayed by the Sonic films. I was never a big Sonic fan myself. I still am not a big Sonic fan. I mean, I loved Super Mario Bros. Z back in the day, but I'm still not really a big Sonic fan. I don't really know Sonic lore too much. But I did really enjoy the films. I decided to sit down and watch them one day, and I was like, hey, these are actually really entertaining and really enjoyable. Did I then turn around and decide to become a Sonic fanatic and play all the games and stuff like that? No, but I still liked the movies. But even then, even in those best case scenarios, it's still kind of like, you know, video game movies just don't sit right with these super out of touch shareholders and just really high up execs. You know, it doesn't sit right with them because they're so out of touch and they just don't realize that there are so many games that could be adapted into amazing movies. And Iron Lung is a fantastic example of how you don't even have to turn a mainstream video game into a movie. Like, sometimes looking at the more niche or smaller or indie titles for potential for adaptation, sometimes looking there is a better place to look. Because it's not like the gaming industry is in the best place it's ever been right now. So sometimes looking into those more niche titles and seeing the foundations that they have set up and the amazing, like, super intriguing lore that they've made is honestly a better place to look. And I think it goes to show that Iron Lung, the game, being so fascinating to Markiplier that he decided to make a movie of it of his own volition is just, it just goes to show, like, you don't need to be mainstream in any capacity to make something incredible. Not to mention, the release of Iron Lung wasn't just about a creative success for Markiplier or a profitable success or anything like that. Markiplier, you know, he set up blood drives for blood donations alongside the release of the movie. Mark is a super charitable person who's given huge amounts of money to charity, and, you know, there is, I'm pretty sure he mentioned an actual blood shortage happening right now. So him setting up a bunch of blood drives, like, it was like trucks that come in and do it, like, you know, like sort of mobile donation stations, I guess you could call them. The fact that he went out of his way to also set up blood donations, ironically alongside this movie, was very sweet and very kind of him. And it's a great example and statement of his character. Like, yes, this whole project was a giant creative investment for him and a creative passion, but he also still takes his time and his influence to try and create some good from it. Iron Lung is more than just a movie. It is a symbol, it is a representation, it is the best timeline kind of scenario. Because sure, our timeline really isn't doing so great right now, I'm not gonna lie to you. But Iron Lung is one of those huge victories, not only for one of the quote-unquote underdogs of the industry, but also just kind of for everybody. It is a representation of how you don't need to have an overinflated budget and execs looking over your shoulder to make something good. You don't need to avoid or try and stray away from quote-unquote taboos and stigmas like the idea of a video game movie to make something good. And you don't just need to use a movie like this and its creation and its release and the amount of attention it's going just for profit. You can use it to try and create some actual, like, good substance. Of course, pleasing the fans and the people who want to see this movie is, you know, priority number one and always will be when it comes to making a film. But if you can tag on something like charity to it and use it to try and create some good in the world, then that's even better. But there really isn't too much more I can say without getting into spoiler territory for the film. Now that I've sort of talked about how the reasons that Iron Lung is more than just a film, I can't really say much else without talking about the film itself. So spoilers start here, ladies and gentlemen. Spoilers start here. If you haven't seen the movie, leave now, go see the movie, and then come back. Just put this video in your watch later. It won't be going anywhere. But yes, the plot of the film. What is the plot of Iron Lung? How does it differ from the game? How is it similar? Let us answer all of those questions. First of all, it is very, very, very similar to the game. The ending is a tiny bit different, and of course we know a lot more about the protagonist, because, you know, we're not just playing an empty shell player character. But I like that Mark continued to roll with the idea, because in the games you're told, you are a convict. I like that he rolled with that idea and tied in an in-game lore event to why our main character is a convict. That being the destruction of the Consolidation of Iron's filament station. I thought that was a neat way to tie a couple of lore things together to make a nice foundation for a protagonist. And speaking of our protagonist, one thing I saw another reviewer talk about in an IMDb review, and something I subconsciously thought about, was, man, how am I gonna watch this super serious, like, psychological horror film when the main person I'm going to be seeing on screen for the next 2 hours is this goofy King of Five Nights at Freddy's? How am I supposed to differentiate the King of Five Nights at Freddy's from this character that Mark is playing? Well, in truth, I didn't really have to. When I say that, I mean I didn't have to put any effort into doing so, because Mark's acting as the character, who is named Simon, I didn't really have to put in any effort into differentiating between Markiplier, the King of Five Nights at Freddy's, and Markiplier, the actor who plays Simon in Iron Lung. After like 5-10 minutes into the movie, I completely, like, almost forgot about the other side of Markiplier, the King of Five Nights at Freddy's. I was like, okay, Mark is playing this poor soul who is trapped in this damn submarine going into a blood ocean at the end of the universe. Like, that is all I could think about and the only thing I was focusing on. And I wasn't trying to focus on it. The movie made me focus on it and immersed me in that, you know, basis of the character. And the fact that I didn't have to put any effort into differentiating between the King of Five Nights at Freddy's and Simon from Iron Lung speaks volumes not only to Mark's acting ability, but also his writing capabilities. Because you can have a freaking awesome script that is top-notch quality, but if you have a shitty actor who doesn't know how to play the character or doesn't have a deep enough understanding of the character, then it's gonna suck. But if you have a top-notch script and a top-notch actor who has a deep understanding of the character, and in this case, it works out because Mark wrote the character, great combination, always works out. So I was very, very happy after the movie had ended, and I was like, wow, I completely forgot that was Markiplier for a while there. Like, I legitimately did, like, over an hour into the film, I completely forgot it was Markiplier. Like, I knew that was his face, but that's about it. Also, of course, our setting, our primary setting, the inside of the SM-13, or the Iron Lung. The fact that this movie took one setting, and made me interested in it for an entire 2 hours, nonstop. There wasn't a minute I was bored or hoping to see something else or anything. I was invested from start to finish in this one little submarine. And I think that's for a variety of different reasons. First of all, I was invested in Mark's character, Simon, who I'm just gonna refer to him as from now on. I was invested in Simon's reactions to everything happening around him, the fact that he could not see anything around him, and seeing him figure out how to navigate within the Iron Lung and what's around him was just very intriguing. I was like, how is he gonna get past this obstacle? How is he gonna figure out where he's gonna go? Like, for example, at the beginning of the third act, he was flung out of the map. Like, remember how in the games, there's this one instance where you just get hit by the fish or hit by something and you're suddenly in a totally different location? That happens at the very start of the third act, but this time, Mark isn't on the map at all. Like, if this is the map, right? This is the map, he's over here. He's like way over there. And to navigate back, he uses trial and error, and he takes these little, the little patches of bandage that he takes and sort of makes his own map on the wall. I loved that. That was so good. Seeing a character with so many limited options figure out innovative and interesting ways to overcome seemingly impossible problems is one of my favorite things in any kind of movie. It's one thing to be faced up against impossible odds, but being faced up against impossible odds and also having like maybe 2 choices available to you and that's it, seeing characters overcome that kind of stuff makes it all the more satisfying. And another thing I really liked about the setting, the SM-13, is that they added sort of a new section that we didn't see in the games. There's this little like crawl space like underneath the panels of the floor that Simon had to go in. And when he opened it up, because at one point he lost power and he had to go, reboot the engines, he opened up the panel and saw the crawl space and he was like, fuck that. And to be fair, I would have the exact same reaction, like, hell no. What if I'm down there and something goes wrong? What if I go down there and then there's something else inside the submarine? Even though there is visibly nothing else inside the submarine, who's to say something else might not just like appear there, because it is a blood ocean full of mysteries and anomalies. And I think that's one of the things that really kept me drawn in and interested in this one little setting, was the amount of tension that was happening. There was so much freaking tension. It's kind of like how the game was, where you really can't see anything that's going on, but there's all these noises and creaks and strange things happening and noises and just all this like audible stuff and strange visual stuff. Like when you find that glint of light that's all like wibbly wobbly and like, what the hell is that? I think that is why there was so much tension, is because the original game was also very tense. The physical set design of the SM-13, everything from the COI terminal, the database terminal, to the speaker, to the the control panel with the lever and the turning thing and the numbers, like it not only looked great, it not only functioned, because it was a practical set, but the sound design was fantastic. Every time Mark turned the thing to rotate the submarine or pushed up the lever to engage the engine, not only the noise that the lever made, but the engines roaring up themselves, and then seeing the whole thing just like shake and wobble a little bit because, it's a welded iron piece of shit, was just very satisfying to listen to. And it makes sense that the sound design of the movie would be just as good, if not better, than the sound design of the original game, because the game was pretty much all about sound when it came to the horror and mystery elements. And speaking of mystery elements, one thing that really got me was the amount of mind fucks that this movie had. For example, when Simon's oxygen was running low, he started hearing voices on the radio and thought he had like bumped into another submarine. Like he thought he had been down there for so long that the COI sent some other crew down there and he had managed to get within radio range of them. And they were saying all these things and they were like, you know, hey, would you, and they asked Simon, would you do anything for your survival? And he was like, yeah, I would. And they were like, okay, then go to these coordinates. And he was like, done deal, you got it. I'm gonna go to those coordinates. What have I got to lose? And then the voices kept talking and talking, and then he kept responding and responding. And then when he sort of like went up to the speaker because he was getting like a little mad at some of the crap they were saying, he realized, oh, the wire to the speaker is in fact ripped off. So who the hell am I talking to? And then when Simon arrived at the coordinates, he found, lo and behold, as what I predicted was gonna happen, I was like, this has to be a thing that they add in the movie, right? There's no way they don't add this. Of course, Simon finds the wreckage of the SM-8. And then I don't remember if it was immediately or when he went back to the wreckage of the SM-8 after reconnecting with the COI, but when he was downloading some of the data off of the SM-8's black box, remotely, some of the audio recordings and voice recordings from that submarine were the same things and the same voices that were coming from the speaker that, when he thought that the speaker wire was ripped out and he was just hearing things, they were the same voices that he heard before. And I was like, wait, what? Such a WTF moment. Like I said, I don't remember precisely if it was when he first arrived at the SM-8 or if it was after, because it's been a couple days since I've seen the movie. But that was such a mindfuck of a moment. And then there was that one instance, I don't remember if it was during the third act or towards the end of the second act, but it was when the oxygen only had one block left, or only one light left. Mark was hearing all these sounds. Sorry, Simon. It's just, if I call him Mark, I'm gonna call him Mark. When Simon was just continuing his journey through the Blood Ocean, he was hearing all these sounds and noises. I think it was either when he was approaching or getting close to the light thing, because they did include that weird wobbly light thing that was in the game as well. And the voices were talking about how it was like, an answer to why the Quiet Rapture happened, something left for us from God, basically. And then the submarine just like ripped open, and just like all the, the blood started pouring in, and it was slow motion, like just how fast everything was moving. And then Simon stood up and he was like on another side, basically, and he looked up into the sky and there was all this crazy cosmic imagery of like eldritch deities and this giant eye speaking to him, and I was like, holy crap, are we actually gonna get a deeper story here than just the SM-13 in the Blood Ocean? I was like, is this going a completely different route than I thought it was going to? And then it's just boom, we're back in the submarine, and it's like, wait, what the hell just happened? And it's genuinely hard to tell during the end of the second and the entire third act, basically, what was real and what wasn't. You could chalk up all the crazy shit that happens to Simon just running out of oxygen, or you could chalk it up to genuine anomalous stuff, like some god crap happening or some divine intervention or whatever. Because it could have legitimately been that, because Simon should have run out of oxygen a really long time ago, and when he reconnects with the COI command, they're like, it's been days since your last connection. How are you still alive? It's like, how the hell did that even happen? Maybe there was some sort of temporal anomaly down there and he like traveled a couple days into the future or something. I don't know, but all the mindfuck moments and WTF moments were just like top notch. Like that really got the gears turning in my head, and I was like, what is happening? Another thing I really liked was the rate at which information was revealed about Simon. We don't even learn his name until like the last 30 minutes of the movie, I'm pretty sure. We know he's a convict. We know he was present at Filament Station, and that's pretty much it. I think we only learn about the Filament Station bit sometime after his second submerge, because man goes down, finds the big skeleton, and then he goes back up. And then they're like, we're sending you back down. He's like, what? Excuse me? I really liked that as well. I like that they sort of gave him a sort of breath of freedom, being like, all right, I'm done. And then they're like, no, you're not. Like that, I knew the minute that they brought up the sub the first time, and we were only like 30 minutes or something into the movie, I was like, they are sending him back down and he is never coming back up. And that was a great sort of like, oh no, don't send him back down, don't do it. But they did, and well, if you've seen the movie, you know what happens. Another thing I really, really liked, that was towards either the end of the first act or the beginning of the second act, was when Simon found the COI terminal and found that little, like, glass, just, like, amulet, I guess, with, I think it was, like, a dove holding an olive branch or something like that. And, you know, that was left behind by one of his Eden brethren. I'm not sure if it was his actual biological brother, because he referred to him as brother, but then again, the Eden folks seem to just refer to each other as brother anyway. And not only did he find that amulet and get kind of choked up about it, because it must have belonged to someone he knew, there was also that note that told him to, you know, cross the wires to activate the terminal. And then instead of, like how in the games, there's that paper note on the floor saying this is not an exploration, it's an execution, it was an actual recording and an audio log, which makes perfect sense for the context of a film. And it was after this moment when Simon sat down back at the pilot's chair and said, "Sorry, brother, but I want to live," since, you know, the other one accepted his death. That's when I really started rooting for Simon as a character. I was like, you know, he may have done some messed up stuff in the past or made some mistakes or whatever, but man just wants to live. It's the end of the universe. How wrong is that? And that's when I really started rooting for him. I feel like that's when I really became attached to Simon as a character. Besides, he probably not only wants to live for selfish reasons, I mean, that was definitely the primary motivating factor, but I'm sure he also wanted to live so he could continue carrying the memory of some of his other Eden brethren. The simple motivation of survival against impossible odds is there's just something so primal about that just lures any of us in. It's like you see these people in these horrible, seemingly impossible scenarios where they can just barely scrape by to survive. And when one is put into a situation where they could very well not make it out of it, and even if they do, they not really have much to return to, so just the motivation of survival in those situations it just speaks to us as human beings. And I think that definitely created a lot of the investment, at least for me anyway. I'm sure that was also the case for a lot of other watchers. And I want to talk about what is potentially my favorite thing in the whole film now, that being the camera. Now, I would have never ever thought to do this if I was in charge of the Iron Lung movie, ever. Now, I would have never thought to even include this scene as a part of the plot. But when Simon was pulled up for the first time, and he was trying to figure out what the hell was going on the outside, he was like, what the hell? I was like, all right, screw it, I'll just take a picture, see what's going on out there. And then when he saw the picture, there was someone who was just like, had half their face melted off, and you could see their skull and stuff. And then the lady came back to the front, like to the porthole window, and was like, what the hell is wrong with you? And he's like, what do you mean? I just took a picture. And he's like, and the woman was like, you cannot see through blood with a normal ass camera. It is an X-ray gun. And Simon's like, why didn't you tell me that? That was such a great interaction. And what I really like about it, as a result of that scene, was the number of times that Simon genuinely apologized for it. Because, like, he clearly, like, obviously he's apologizing because he wants to save his ass. Like, yeah, that's a given. But he also seemed genuinely remorseful, and because as we learn later on, Simon was actually trying to stop the attack on Filament Station. That was just a moment for his character, you know, in his past where he was like, why are we killing each other? This is ridiculous. There's only so many of us left. And when that bit of information was revealed that he was actually trying to stop the attack on Filament Station, I was like, holy crap, he actually, like, sure, he's trying to save his ass by apologizing, but clearly he actually does genuinely mean it when it came to the whole X-ray gun situation. And I want to make it very clear. I want to make it very, very clear. Simon as a character, for all intents and purposes, is not super complex as a character. And that's not inherently a bad thing. Characters don't need to have a deep backstory and extremely complicated motivations to be interesting. Sometimes just a singular motivation as a result of a singular conflict in their past, but it's so strong, and that motivation is so strong because the conflict and the emotions that came as a result of it were so strong, is all you really need. And that's the kind of character Simon was, or, well, was, because he's dead now. He was one of Eden's greatest warriors. He killed, like, 62 people, I think? And sure, I mean, like, in the context of a grand story, that might not sound like a lot, but considering there's very few people left alive, that's quite the body count. So the fact that this killer, who's just, like, spent his whole life killing and shedding blood and being a great warrior for the sake of Eden, suddenly starts to develop a conscience, and all this blood on his hands suddenly starts to just make him just go a little crazy, like fuck, this is getting to me sort of thing, you know? Suddenly when he starts to have a change of heart and is like, no, what I've done is wrong. So what I'm going to do, I'm now going to try and do some right. And at the very beginning of the movie, the COI commander, I forget her name, but she was brilliant actress. I forget the name of her character. I could get the name of her I get the name of the actress if I wanted to, but I'm lazy, so I won't. Wait a minute, we'll fix it in post. Put her on screen. She was brilliant. And I like that at the very beginning of the movie, she asked Simon, "You ready to do some good for once?" And he was like, "Yeah. I think I am, yeah." We saw the end and the beginning of a new arc for Simon as a character at the very beginning of the film. The end of his bloody past and his bloody history was put behind him at the very start, and we didn't even know about it. So when you find out about it, you're like, crap, this dude used to be kind of an asshole and kind of a piece of shit, but he's trying to contribute. Of course he's trying to survive, like that's his main motivation, but you know, he's trying to do some good now because he has regret, and he would rather live with that regret than die. I mean, I think a lot of people would rather live with regret than straight up die, but you know, if the regret's bad enough, I think some people probably would choose death. But Simon wants to live, and that is why you root for him, because you find out that he used to be a real piece of shit, murderer, just killer, bad person. And then you find out that on the worst, like the worst of his endeavors, Filament Station, when that was destroyed, when you find out that he was the only person trying to stop it, the only person trying to save lives and prevent the destruction of Filament Station, you're kind of like, crap, I feel bad for this guy. You don't forgive him for the things he's done, given the scenario he's in, but you feel bad for him because of all the crap he's been through. You know, he's just a messed up guy who's trying to turn things around a little bit. And those simple little things, those simple little character moments where it's just like, I messed up, I really did, I genuinely feel bad, but if you let me live, I'll turn it around. And like, that's it. Like, sometimes that's all you need to create an unbelievable amount of investment. And I was unbelievably invested in Simon as a character. Like, I knew he wasn't gonna live, right? It's an Iron Lung movie. He died at the end of Iron Lung. It's also Markiplier writing it. There's no way he would let the main character survive. I do not think that is something he would do in his writing. But you still root for this character because you get invested in them, especially after you see them start to have flashbacks of Eden. The Eden flashbacks were great, by the way. You know, they were, again, a nice, like, little simple layer to add to the Simon sandwich. But I mean, the visuals of them, for how short they were great. Seeing the actual, like, garden on Eden, not the Garden of Eden, but the garden on Eden Station. That was really cool, and seeing, like, Simon as a child and some of his Eden brethren who, you know, died in Filament Station and were questioning him and all that, later in his life. It was just really nice. It was just a nice little addition. Also, speaking of Eden, I love my Unus Annus hoodie, and you might be wondering what the hell that has to do with anything. Well, my friends, during the Unus Annus channel, Mark and Ethan did this one video called Hunting He-Who, and it was basically like a knockoff documentary that essentially was taking the whole caveman Mark joke really, really far. And in that video, they had a voice actor do some narration as sort of a knockoff David Attenborough. And this narrator was incredible. He did such a good job. He did such a good job that they brought him in for Iron Lung. Again, editor, put the dude on screen. He was fantastic. I absolutely loved his voice and narration style, and he did a great job as like one of the Eden commanders, I guess. I don't remember the name of the role off the top of the dome, but again, there it is in post. And he narrated someone who was on Eden, and the cadence and like, God, what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word for like a strong voice? What is it? It's on the tip of my tongue. I guess vigor. I guess that's a good way to put it. The vigor he put into voicing this Eden character was fantastic. And I'm so happy that Mark decided to put him on this project. Yeah, he is a very minor role, just some narration lines, but it added a whole extra layer of depth to it. I mean, if you're an Unus Annus fan. If you're not, he was just a great voice actor. I've been recording for 42 minutes, and I could probably record for a lot longer. But I think that really goes to show that I've been sitting here rambling and like being able to just think of things immediately to ramble about Iron Lung and talk about all the things I liked and how much I enjoyed the film, and for all those reasons, for 42 minutes, pretty much with like minimal breaks, like 5 10-second breaks, tops. Maybe 30 seconds when I need some water. But I think that's really a statement to just how fantastic Iron Lung was. Now, I did see some reviews of people saying it would be better off as like a short film, or maybe, you know, the length was a little bit long. And sure, I get that, I do. It absolutely could have been a short film. And sure, you could probably shave off a couple of things if you really wanted to. They weren't, you know, there were plenty of things that weren't 100% necessary that you could absolutely shave off, but sometimes those unnecessary extra things are what help make a film. And I feel like those extra, not necessarily necessary things, Jesus Christ. And I feel like those extra, potentially unnecessary things are kind of like the main points and the main, like, talking points and the main driving force behind what divides people on a film. I feel like it is those extra things, whether they were included or not, how they were included, be it this way, that way, or potentially this way. I feel like those are one of the primary things that really divide people on a film. Those are the genuine subjective parts. But if we put all of those subjective bits to the side and just ignore them for a minute, let's all just ignore them just for a minute, Iron Lung is truly a fantastic film. The lighting is brilliant, for one. The sheer understanding of human nature and how humans respond in life or death scenarios is top-notch. The character of Simon has very few flaws and is genuinely a character I was super invested in, and I imagine most people who watch the film were probably very invested in him, even though they knew he was going to die. Ironically, though, the movie wasn't that scary. I mean, it's possible that I have something of an immunity to horror films. Like, I won't get scared by a horror film, but if a horror film has like a super just sudden loud thing, you know, like a giga jump scare, if you will, that'll make me jump a little bit. It won't scare me, it'll just startle me. But Iron Lung wasn't that scary. It was intriguing, it was fascinating, it made me just like super interested in what the hell was going on. It was mind-fucky, but it wasn't too scary. That's just me though. I'm sure there are people who would watch this and get some fear out of it. Simon was definitely extremely afraid in most of the circumstances he found himself in. And I really saw the fear in him. Mark sold the fear of Simon very well. But me as a viewer wasn't that scared. And that's also possible because, again, I watched Mark play the game originally. I watched a bunch of people play Iron Lung. Played it myself once. That was a whole bunch of fun. But it wasn't scary to me. And that's okay. The sci-fi, rapture, divine, biblical mindfuckery, that is what really drew me in. Like, that is what had my attention for the most part, when it happened anyway. When it wasn't that, it was Simon who had my attention. And goddamn, it kept my attention for those whole 2 hours the entire time. And the last thing I'd like to talk about, just really quick, the end credits of the film. They were so heartwarming, so heartwarming. Mark clearly wanted like as many people as he possibly could to get fair, even amounts of recognition in the end credits, and I absolutely loved that. The little photos with like the pen written names of the casting and the crew and the producers and everybody going up the sides, like sort of near where their names come up, and seeing the dogs as well, that was great. That was just really, really nice to see. It's like those end credits really show that the single individual behind the inception of this film cared and genuinely appreciated every single person who helped him get to this point every step of the way. Of course, and I'm not knocking other movies for not doing this, but when you have larger scale movies with bigger budgets and way more VFX artists and way more actors and all that crap, of course, when you have big movies like that, there are just walls and walls and walls and walls of names. And giving everybody equal recognition just isn't possible. And I'm not saying it's wrong of studios to not go out of their way to give every single person recognition, or try to at least show that they care about the little people who help, the people who actually carry the films. Not saying it's wrong that they don't do that, but seeing a film that is small enough to where it has the capability of doing so was just very heartwarming. It was very bizarre seeing a photo with Lixion's face on it, like his animated character face. That was really crazy. I remember there were only 3 set of people in the studio. There was me, there was this one person, there was me and the person I went with, the person like 3 rows in front of me, and then this couple kind of like over that away. The couple were definitely Markiplier fans, because before, as the promos were playing, they were like quoting Mark's intro and saying like Bite of 87, and I was sitting there giggling in my seat, and then I started quoting them. It was great. But as soon as Lixian's photo came up, and the couple put it out, and they were like, "Holy shit, Lixian!" I just started laughing and giggling, because I was like, "Yes, like people who know." I don't know, it was just very surreal, because like Lixian is like such an integral part of Mark's channel. I think all of us are aware of that, and it was just cool. It was just really cool. And then seeing the 4 photos at the very end of Mark, Chica, Amy, and I think Henry was in the photos as well, because Henry was on set at the time. You know, Henry's dog, or not Henry's dog, Henry, Mark's dog, who unfortunately passed away, rest in peace. I'm pretty sure the 4th photo was Henry, but it was just an incredible experience. And the credits were really such a sweet bow to wrap things up with. So I'm gonna do my best to wrap things up in a somewhat sweet way. Mark, I look up to you, I really do. You're an incredible person, an incredible creator, and someone with an unbelievable amount of integrity. Executing your creative vision and making Iron Lung a reality is an unbelievable achievement. Not only do I applaud you, sir, but I also hope that whatever you decide to do next, and I know, whatever you decide to do next is gonna be even bigger than Iron Lung. I hope whatever it is, it has no less of the integrity and passion that you put into Iron Lung. And to everyone watching, go watch the movie again. And if you haven't watched the movie and you ignored my spoiler warning and you're here right now, shame on you. Go watch the movie. Go support this incredible YouTuber who started out as a guy screaming about Slender Man and swag, is now released like the #1 horror film in America at the current time. Go watch the movie. Shame on you for watching this. I'm kidding. I know some people don't care about spoilers. But wow, Iron Lung. Holy crap. That was a long one. Well, for me, it was long. It's now been like an hour, but I've enjoyed every second of it. If you want to like watch me play, actually, you know what? Here's what I'll do. I'll ask the members. Members, if you want me to like play Iron Lung for you, just like in a self-contained like members only video, or do a member stream or something, just say so in the comments. And to everyone else, if you enjoyed this video and if you enjoyed watching me talk about Iron Lung, not just about the movie itself, but everything it represents and everything surrounding it, and just how much of an incredible like event that it is, be sure to hit the like and sub button. I would greatly appreciate that. And of course, if you want to show me a little bit of extra support and potentially watch me play Iron Lung just for fun, consider becoming a channel member. Not only do you get access to a whole bunch of exclusive rewards, but you also directly support me in the process and help keep this channel running. And I would love to keep this channel running because I love making these videos. But that is gonna do it for now. Thank you all so much for watching, and yeah, have a good day, everyone. Oh, I wonder if there's any of that blood left over that I can slurp up.